Hi, welcome everyone to Unity. I'm Brooklin Rayne.
And I'm Emily Ghosh, and we are so grateful you're here today.
Yeah, so excited and so excited to celebrate this magnificent, exquisite, fantastic being of light. KAKI, thank you so much for being here with us, shining your light, shining your heart. I know we're going to go into a little bit deeper sharing of who you are and why you're here. But first, we'd just like to thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited and I love you both so much. I wish I was in the same room as you, but I'm not.
One day we will take it from the cosmic hug to the real hug.
Yes, I cannot wait for that. Hopefully in Australia.
Yes, totally.
Yeah. Where you're joining us from.
Yeah.
I'd love to.
Yes, come visit me.
Yes, absolutely. I'd love to share a little bit about your bio before we dive in. For anyone who is not familiar, Kaki Lee is the founder and creator of the Abundant Goddess Academy and Kaki Publishing House, and the host of Awaken Feminine podcast. Kaki teaches busy women how to create wealth by bringing intuition, feminine flow, and strategy in language that is easy to understand. Kaki became inspired to teach strategy, mindset, and energy tools she used to replace her six-figure income as a hospital pharmacist manager because she knew firsthand how exhausting it was to exchange time for money, and this was a perfect way for busy women to create money effortlessly in minimal time. Her podcast, The Awakened Feminine, is ranked in the top 10% globally and features inspiring women and a few good men from around the world sharing their journey and message to living a soul-led life. And Kaki is also a 3 times #1 international best-selling author and has been featured on numerous podcasts. She lives in Perth, Western Australia, with her husband Terry and 2 young daughters.
Yeah, I just, feel like we're being sprinkled with glitter right now.
So much magic.
Yeah, it's awesome. So good to have you here. Kaki, can you, we would love for you to share with everyone who's gathered here, tell us a little bit about how this journey of massive transition that was spoken of in your bio, right? Transformation, transition, transcendence, how, a little bit more about the story of that and, what your experience was or has been rather.
Yeah. So I was a pharmacist for I think about 16 or 17 years. And I had children, and that's when things started to shift. I've got 2 daughters, one's 7 and one's 3. So when the first one came along, I started questioning why I was here because pharmacy was never something I really wanted to do. It was more like my parents said, pharmacy is really good for women because it's flexible so you can look after your kids. But working in a hospital, it actually wasn't really flexible at all. And that started having my first child, started my awakening. And it was between my first and second, I was just exploring different things. Like I remember I had postnatal depression, and I remember it took me so long to even acknowledge that I had postnatal depression, like 2 years down the track. Finally went to the doctor because I was crying every single night. My husband didn't know what to do with me. He's so supportive, but he just didn't know. I was just crying every night. And I went to the doctor and she's like, do you want drugs? First thing, do you want drugs? Do you want antidepressants? And I'm like, no. Being a pharmacist, I just knew it's been overprescribed. And I didn't think I had that, it was that serious that I needed to take medication. So I started exploring. He told me to go see a psychologist, but I went to see a Reiki master, which was like totally unexpected for me because being very scientific based pharmacist, Reiki master is like two separate worlds. But I went and I actually found a Reiki master who used to be a medical doctor. And I felt more at home, like more, it just felt more right because she also had a healthcare background and the fact that she went to Reiki. So I went to see her and I remember it was just like, wow, what just happened? I could feel the energy moving as soon as she started the session. And then I was hooked. And that was me exploring the spiritual side of things. But it was very slow because I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to go. I didn't have any friends around me that actually were spiritual or was into, you know, anything that wasn't the normal, as you would call it. So then when I had my second child, that was when the massive, massive shifts happened. And it was just like, I just couldn't, it was like my body couldn't keep up with how fast things were changing. I remember going on maternity leave with my second, and I went, oh, I'm just going to do this share trading course that I bought like a year ago. And so first day maternity leave, being that, you know, type A, high achieving girl that I am, like, okay, I'm going to do this like share trading course. And I did it, remembering that I was in the hospital, just had my baby, calling my coach, and he's like, where are you? I'm like, I just had a baby. He's like, why are you calling me? Um, so I actually was able to replace my 6-figure pharmacy manager income through share trading. And I went, okay, I don't need to go back. And then it was feeling the calling to become a life coach through that, then going into quantum healing. Then it was, then I started working with Emily, and I had this message to start a podcast. So that was like, okay, push all the coaching aside, started my podcast, and that's 2.5 years ago now. And podcast back to coaching, but then going, oh, I can combine share trading and mindset and energy work all together. It just makes so much sense because I could pinpoint every single time when I lost money, what was happening for me energetically, where my mind was and everything. And when I had like really good winning streaks, where I was. So it just correlated. So yeah, and then it became author. Then it was like going down the author track. It's just like been a constant like nudging into different fields, different things. But for me, someone that's very curious and loves to do a lot of things, it also feels really right, even though I'm like, okay, share trading, now publishing, and like just podcast, it somehow all fits together. But then when you look at them separately, they don't really quite match together either. So, but that's just my world. It's just like all these different things that I'm interested in. But yeah, it's been a big, massive journey of really just trusting and surrendering and just leading half the time.
Yeah, love it. She of 1,000 names, right? I remember at one point, um, earlier in on the path of spiritual evolution, if you will, or awakening. I was with a friend and we were playing around with some cards, and I was at this point of the journey where also it was like, you know, all these different areas of calling and interest and cultivation, right? And it was like, you know, for those around who are very, you know, in my family members, etc. Similarly, it sounds like to, you know, to your background, maybe a little less scientific, but still like very much, you know, in the flow of the general construct of society, right? We're like, what are you doing? Like I feel like every single week or month, like, you know, you have a different interest and a different thing happening. And I was like, yeah, isn't it amazing? You know, but also I could feel like parts of me in it, right? That were like, yeah, like, is this, I've just got to trust, right? I've just got to trust, because we have the inner knowing when we get the niggle, right? And we're like, ooh, yeah, let me go, and explore it. But then, if we zoom out into the general perception, of what's happening, it doesn't make any sense at all. So it's like best to stay in the heart center and just follow the flow. But anyways, I remember I was sitting with a friend and I was at this point of like really just cultivating the tool basket is what I like to call it. And we picked a card, and it was, I believe, like an Isis card. It was like a goddess deck or something. And it was like, she of 1,000 names, we're infinite creator, I'm paraphrasing it basically, but like we're infinite creator beings, right? We're meant to explore and create anew, and to not do it like anyone else, and to celebrate that, and to celebrate everybody's, path. And so there was more to it, which really led into a deeper invitation to, to let go of any one attachment or title or expectation of how our paths are meant to be laid out and played out, right? And it was so simple, but it was really a massive invitation that came in that. And, of course, we know there's so much energetics behind these types of cards and so forth. So it sounds as though, your path is similar, right? It's like you have this massive cosmic tool basket, and you're just, okay, what is today bringing forth? What is being called, and you have a lot, an abundance of resources to play with in it. I love it. Keeps it interesting.
It really does. And that's something that I love so much about you. It's so fun to witness and watch the evolution, and how, you just meet whatever you receive with so much courage and trust. I mean, it's hard to believe that that's 2.5 years ago that you started the Awakened Feminine podcast. And now you've started a publishing company to help people around the world tell their stories. And you think about that and you're like, how do you start a publishing company, but you just have the resources and the trust to figure it out along the way. And I'd love to just explore that thread a little bit more, because sometimes it is hard, when we're receiving something, we're like, how does this relate to this? And how am I even, to lean into that and to really trust your inner guidance, your inner knowing.
Yeah. It's funny because I don't always trust my inner guidance and not knowing. I think I think most of us will like question, and even starting the publishing house, it took probably a good 3 months before I actually surrendered and went, okay, I'll do this. But it was very much like I got the download that my latest book needs to come from me, needs to come from my own publishing house. I'm like, I don't like that answer. I really don't like that answer. And it was like pulling cards out just to get a no. But every single time for like 2 months, I kept getting yeses. So I went, I think I really need to do this. So so that's how my publishing house started, because I really couldn't run away from it.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I'm just reflecting back, both of us participated in the beautiful co-creation, which is the Awakened Feminine book, which I see behind you.
I've got it.
And just
Yeah.
seeing that process unfold was just incredible. How, people were just intuitively guided to be a part of the co-creation, and just to witness your, beautiful heart-centered leadership throughout the process. I'd love, behind the scenes, if you could share a little bit about what that process was like to like put out that invitation.
Yeah. So the Awakened Feminine again came as a download, like all my things that I do. And the process. So I said yes. So I was talking to the publisher that I partnered with for that book, and when I told her the book title that came through, she was like, "Yes, we need that." So I'm like, "Okay." And the full body tingles, we just jumped in and said yes. And the process behind it was there was a lot of shedding, a lot of healing, a lot of frustration that had to happen for things to, really to bring everyone together. Because I didn't know that when you embark on a book project, the title of the book is like the journey that you'll go through. So it's the awakened feminine stories of women awakening to who they truly are. And it took me such a long time to actually even recognize my own operating system. I found out, I've seen signs of it, is whenever I pull back and take a step back, that's when people come and find me. When I'm out there, it's like doing all the things, dancing, even if I was naked, probably no one would see me. But as soon as I just go hide in my hidey hole, people start coming. And again, that's exactly what happened with this book. I was doing all the things, getting frustrated, going, where are these women that are supposed to be in my book? And even at one point, I'm like, maybe I'm not supposed to do it. I mean, I had beautiful Emily and Brooklyn in there, which I'm so blessed to have them in there. But then I was like, where are the other women? I've got like really amazing women in here, but I need some more people to be in this book. And it was, just going, all right, that's how I work. I need to just kind of put it out there and then just pull back. And I had to get rid of a lot of layers of, different beliefs and stories that I tell myself. I was working with a coach who was just helping me. It was like ancestral stuff, like clearing like things from my grandmother, my grandfather, all the things, and really just tuning in. And once that happened, it was just like, oh, all the authors just decided to just find me like very quickly. Yeah. So it was a beautiful process, and I learned so much. And I don't think I would want it any other way. And it taught me a lot. And then now I'm like, oh well, I'm starting my own publishing house. I mean, obviously it was a good experience.
Yeah, that's incredible. I'm looking at sort of zooming out into the quantum fabric of all that is being brought forth in this sharing, and having been a part of, the journey, and also, so there was so much for all of us in it, right? To further come into greater places of surrender and awareness and, deeper transparency and clear. I mean, it was just marvelous, right? Such a huge portal of light and inner alchemy and self-realization that was part of this process of, of deeper homecoming. And what I remember too is, as you were cultivating the community and creating connection, and you were like, okay, ladies, those who had already, been guided to participate, I remember you saying, we're wanting some more participants and and there was a part of me that was like, oh yeah, I was like diving in and like, and I heard very clearly from source, wait for it, come back around. And I was like, come back around. I'm like, there's, KAKI has this deadline, like wait for it, like, type of thing. And so of course, I had these little moments with source and highest self, right? And I always know I'm going to surrender and listen and do exactly what is said. But similarly, sometimes it's an immediate surrender, and sometimes it's like, okay, let's see what it feels like not to surrender again, like, the human self, right? So I did, and then, and then all of a sudden one day I remember, and as you're speaking, I'm seeing like you were being guided to surrender. Until you surrendered, I wasn't going to be guided to participate in reaching out to the people that had been popping in that I knew in some capacity, were going to participate. But I was like, huh, this is so interesting. Like, okay, I'll just wait. So you must have reached some sort of, pivotal moment in your surrender, right? Where you, like you're saying, you like went in, and then all of a sudden, I just got the 411, reach out to this, and this person. I was like, okay, and I did. And like, so I love the timing of, the divine perfection of how everything always just, when we surrender, when we go deeper into our heart center, when we go deeper into, really becoming the witnessing presence, everything just flows like water. And it was like, oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
But, and in the non-flowing is where we gather so many nuggets of, and pearls of wisdom though, right? It's like, and we wouldn't have it any other way, even though the human self is like, no, I'm good with the water. I'm good with the flow.
Yeah. Flow is always preferred.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think sometimes we forget, it's like, well, I have this maybe deadline, or there's this many people, and it's like, well, I need to do something to get these people, but then it's really the recognition that it's, on an energetic level is when we attune to the energy and really like visualize, connect with that vision. It's like, that's when the magic happens. That's when, people are magnetized. It's so internal.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I think it further speaks to what so many, ancient masters and ascended masters and spiritual, pure spiritual embodiment has shared throughout the ages, right? It's like, it is the embodiment, and really, it's like taking it from an intellectually understood concept or principle, and then taking it into deeper and deeper layers of consistent practice and participation. And then it becomes the embodiment, and then you become the bigger invitation, right? And it's like, right? So it was like, so many threads of the awakened feminine are about the journeys, each person's unique, very unique and profound journey, but really depths of surrender, deeper depths of surrendering into that place of like, okay, wait a second. Let me just pause for a moment here and realize clearly the system that I have been navigating through and as is no longer, attuned to the fabric of my blueprint here. So let me go in, let me actually listen. Right?
Truly.
Yeah. And sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. And then like the highest self is like, oh, okay, we're going off-road. Okay, we're gonna take the bumpy ride. Okay, and then yeah, so it's such a beautiful dance. And I love how, as you're sharing of this experience and the many, it's like, we really desire on a higher level of consciousness to broaden the scope of our consciousness, and to come into that place of deeper integration through anything that we create, through any portal of creation. And I'm recognizing that more and more and more. It's like one of those aha moments, right? Like recently guided to facilitate a very sort of intimate and intensive cellular and solar group and process, and and I was all excited about it. I got the download for it, and I'm like, yeah, I'm like, this is awesome. And and then I started, it started coming near to the start date, and all sorts of things were shifting in my reality, and all sorts of things were coming, and I was like, oh, right. Like we're leading the experience, right? And to create the greatest space, to become the greatest invitation, to cultivate the greatest essence of what it is that whatever the portal is, whether it's a book or is to go into deeper and deeper and deeper depths of becoming it yourself, right? And I feel like in the energetics of what's happening right now, astrologically, multiversally, etc., it's like even more so, right? Even more palpable is that relationship between creation and, and our own unique hologram.
Yes, and witnessing that in various. Yay! There you are.
Hey, we're back.
The
Yeah.
frequency is too high.
Yeah, so we were just kind of further marveling on sort of how when we come into, creating something, whether a book, whatever it is, we become the energetic signature of the intention, right? Or we can become, or we can resist it, and then we see all the different facets of that resistance and of how it blocks the flow of the sort of the scope and the process of what would most be considered manifestation, I think.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, for
So
sure.
would love for you to share a little bit more about the depths of how sharing stories, how one coming into a place of sharing their stories, really opens up so much of what we've been sharing already. The depths of our greater divine purpose here, the broadening of the scope of all the different facets of what there is to explore and create. Yeah.
Mm, yeah, I think I started loving people sharing their stories through my podcast. So, when I got the download, I didn't really know what was going on, like how it all worked out. But then as I started interviewing all these beautiful women, it was like, oh, okay, I'm learning through their stories. And then when I got invited to be in my first multi-author book, for me, that process it was just unexpected. I think I just thought, oh, I'm just going to write my story and, that's it. But actually sitting down and actually, when I write, it just kind of comes and I just type it out. I don't do the whole, you know, maybe taking a bit of time. It's just like it just comes and then it just needs to be out on the page. But after I typed everything up and reading it, it was like another release. Even though I've healed all those things that I talked about in my chapter, it was like another layer was shed. And I remember like the tears coming and just like, oh, like it was like oh, I'm declaring this. It's just out there now. It's no longer like those stories no longer have a hold on me. And I know from reading other people's stories is like, oh, they went through the same experience. So you heal from that. So it's both ways. It's the person writing that, that's that healing process through writing, and then the people reading it. And then the people reading it, if they are really wanting to learn from the stories, they will shift, and that will shift the people around them as well. So that's what I just love about sharing stories, because it's not just the person writing it that's, talking about themselves and doing that healing, but the people reading it also receive that medicine, that wisdom that they have. And it really makes a big difference. And also an ancestral clearing as well. My latest book is called Badass Asian Women, which I'm getting authors in for now, but I just see like the ancestral clearing of like all the suppression of Asian women. And that is like, whew, just really feels really, I don't even know what the word is, potent, expansive, all those things, and just very healing. And doing it also just for my kids, really, I feel like it's really important for that, because when you do the work, as you know, it's not just you that receives the healing and the changes, it's also the people around you. And I notice that already with my girls, and even actually the people that don't actually do the work, like my mom and my dad, there's changes in them with how we interact. So it's so much bigger than that one person sharing a story. It's like waves.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah. Yeah. Because, when we come in on a quantum, level of how I'm shown through, my lens of perception is that, when we come in and we choose my belief is that we come in and we choose our biological lineage, right? To have the opportunity to work through all sorts of layers of what is held within the imprints of those ancestral lineages, right? And so, when we come in and we start to come into some sort of awareness of this in whatever capacity we choose, and there's a mass spectrum of what that looks like, right? Everything that we do to shift, within our hologram, within like the divine technology of our DNA and cells, everything that we choose to shift, the frequency of and sort of dissolve, the patterns of density and the entanglements of density, and to bring it to more light, to bring it to more levity, to bring it to more integration on a quantum level that radiates out to all that hold a similar, DNA chip, if you will, divine organic computer chip, right? So our parents, albeit, have their own free will and their own unique blueprints here, are instantly receiving the invitation for the greater sense of levity and the shifting of consciousness every single time someone within, their lineage, their family shows up to do the inner work. And so I love it when we witness it, right? And they even a lot of times are like, I don't even know what's happening here. Like, I'm not even sure what's going on, and we can't, of course we know. And in this age of great sovereignty that is upon us, the resurrection of the archetype of sovereignty for humanity, for Gaia, for all beings, it's, everyone must come into, not must, right? Because everybody has a unique relationship with what is offered right now. But for full enlightenment, self-realization, for what we hear and perceive as this golden age of ascension, is to take full ownership and responsibility for all fractals of consciousness, consciously and unconsciously participated in, right? So it's like we're not able to take someone's, densities or their interfacing of density, from them, because that would be kind of infringing upon their own journey of self-discovery and self-realization. And yet through, sharing the biological materials and, choosing to be in a particular familial lineage, it does have a sense of alchemy that takes place that opens up pathways of greater invitation. So, it leads people into greater opportunity. And I think it's so beautiful. And when you brought up the name of your book and what you're doing, I mean, full body chills, right? Because that's huge. You're not only going into the depths of your own ancestral lineage and biological lineage, you're going into, really assisting in the resurrection of the Sophianic template, the divine feminine, architecture that exists within both men and women alike. And yet we know culturally, sort of certain systems and so forth hold greater density in way of allowing for the dissolve of some of those more false patriarchal constructs, we'll call them, right? And so for you to come in and shine your light in such a way, I don't know, there's just a massive cellular celebration happening right now over here.
Yeah, that's great. I'm glad you're getting full body goosebumps too, because it's when I first had that download, every time I talked about that book, it was just like, whew, like it was just constantly feeling that that expansiveness of what this project will bring, and feeling really much that it's not just a multi-author book, but of movement of such. And I am actually creating a movement called I haven't unveiled it yet, but I'll it's next week, next Wednesday. But it's called Resounding the Voices of Asian Women.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's really about helping our Asian sisters to use their voice, or to find their voice, to use their voice, and then to amplify their voice if they so wish to do the amplification. But yeah, the finding and the using is, I think, the most important part. Amplification, not everyone wants to be out there speaking and all those things, but yeah.
Is this a coaching program that you're offering, or what?
It's a group community at the moment, but we'll see what it morphs into. But it just felt like just needed to gather the women first and then see where it goes.
Oh yeah, it's massive. The energetics of it. I can see it, feel it, sense it. It's magnificent. Yeah, how incredible. I'm so excited for humanity and for you and for us knowing you and celebrating you and witnessing, all that you are participating in the, catalyzing of light and freedom and sovereignty and creativity and joy and right, and ultimately a reuniting of and homecoming that has long awaited this invitation. So beautiful.
So yeah, it's very exciting, and there's been, again, lots of doubts, lots of all the things, but this feels, as they say, my purpose is greater than my fear, and this is bigger than me. It's not about me, it's about what this will bring for humanity. Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah, what would the human experience be without a nice little elixir of self-doubt and unworthiness and not enough elixir, right? Every now and then they're like, wait, it's getting too easy for her. Bring in the self-doubt. Call it in so she can increase her mastery even more. It's like, okay, guys, like we're good.
This again, okay.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I mean, it's just the level of expansiveness that comes forth in your declaration of this and your participation in this. I mean, words are not really bringing forth the greatest representation of what I've sensed in the energetics of all this. It's huge, right? And I love that about this human journey, right? Because the egoic mind is like this constant system of contracting and and like through unworthiness programs trying to like puff up the chest, right, like the bird, and and back and forth, and so we participate in it, and we find that dance, and we surrender into it, and we create it, and we birth it, and we release it. And then it's like it comes in waves of recognition to what degree of ripple effect and impact, and then you'll hear a person, maybe it's 3 weeks from whenever it takes, or a year, and they said, oh, this one particular page, or this one particular word, or this one particular whatever it is, right, absolutely changed the trajectory of my entire path here, and gave me and it's like, what, and right there alone, it's like, okay, and now I can surrender even more, right? Because it's like we can't possibly conceptualize linearly the impact of when we participate in greater and greater and greater depths of service to all, right? Service to all, our own unique participation in cultivating more light, it's like all of these, even in the place of just beginning to conceptualize it, huge things are taking place, right, within the quantum field. So it's really, you're very much a beacon, and sounding out and allowing people to so many things, but really inspiring, right, and becoming an invitation for people to recognize how much these types of acts of courage and surrender are igniting other people to be able to do the same, right? Igniting people's comfortability and trust and coming into their authentic selves. And it's massive.
It is, yeah. And the power of our stories, we have so many similarities, and just to hear another person's journey, I find is so inspiring. To
Yeah.
see yourself, to witness yourself in another person's journey, to feel the emotion, the compassion. That's what I absolutely love. Every time, we get the honor to be able to connect and hear someone's journey, is just so inspiring. So I'd love to, have you actually started writing your chapter yet?
No, it hasn't come yet. As you know, I'm a last minute person. The chapter will come probably like a day before the deadline. And it'll just be like, boom. But right now, I've got like, it's just blank right now. I
Yeah,
don't even have any concept.
I can't wait to
Yeah.
read it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
One thing I wanted to ask you about, is about abundance. It's a word that we hear kind of thrown around quite a bit. And I feel like, in your journey that you've shared about, leaving a corporate job in pharmacy, um, creating spaciousness, creating a life that you love, being able to spend time with your family, being able to share your gifts in such a beautiful way. What have you learned, and what do you enjoy teaching about abundance?
Mm. I think the most important thing and my favorite thing to teach about abundance is that it's not just about the money. People always think abundance is like, oh, lots and lots of money, but it's not. It's abundance of all the things that you want in your life, whether it's good health, good relationships, traveling, whatever that looks like. And for me, um, is really getting my clients to get very clear on what they want their life to look like, because what they want their life to look like is abundance. And then it's like, how do we create that abundance for you? So that's what, yeah, that's my favorite thing to teach, that because people kind of go, oh, I never thought of abundance um like that. Yeah.
I love that. There is a gene key, in Richard Rudd's book, The Gene Keys, and it's the 53rd gene key, which is superabundance, is the city, is the enlightened state, and the shadow of that is superficiality. And I love what you're sharing, because it's so in align with that gene key of really transcending into recognizing that abundance really benefits the collective as a whole. It benefits all of us when we are in a state of expansion, when we are in a state of grace, of peace, of love, as how that has a ripple effect into the quantum fabric. And so I love that you're really teaching people how to connect and create that abundance in their lives.
Yeah, because when you look at abundance, if you're not feeling abundant, you'll never be happy. It doesn't matter if you have all the money in the world. If you're not abundant in here, then there's no point. There really is. Yeah. And I learned that, I think, the hard way, but I've now come to from within.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, a lot of times, in different courses and things that come through to be shared, that's a hot topic for everybody, always, is abundance, right? And similarly to what, you all are sharing, it comes through. It's like, focus on the abundance of the things that you think that monetary abundance is going to bring you, and then let that go, and just focus on really cultivating and bringing in the abundant flow of joy, of love, of peace, of sovereignty, of freedom, and, or whatever it is, right, that you desire to feel, or to, have as like the general template of your daily life. And in the celebration and the cultivation and the felt sense of that, right, and the commanding it in and the declaring it in, shifts your reality, whereby everything that is needed on a physical level to further nourish and facilitate the maintaining of those higher vibrational bandwidths of consciousness, magnetize without effort, right? So when, to your sharing point, when we're in a place of experiencing the peace and the joy and the gratitude and the love and, and the excitement about creation and so forth, then all the things, because everything is of quantum nature, and, we magnetize what we're, what we're representing, what we're facilitating, what we're focusing on is, magnetized in our external reality, then everything flows to us. But when we hyper focus on one very small but amplified and meant, and thought to be not small, right? Because everything in our society, for the most, not everything, but a lot of things, point to hyper focusing on that, but it's a consciousness trap. It's a total consciousness trap, right? Because that's just one thing. And to our point, if we obtain that one thing and we put all of our focus into it and all of our effort into it, then the rest of our garden is pretty much, not thriving, so to speak, right? So it's a whole, it's like the upside down world. It's like, it's one of the most magnificent expressions of the duality and polarity of existence here. And so it's like focusing, cultivating, expressing, celebrating all these other higher vibrational frequencies, letting go of the fear, letting go of the scarcity, letting go of the not enough, and before you know it, it's like everything is just in divine flow. All of our, our needs are met for us to be able to continue to maintain these higher vibrational frequencies. And I know a lot of times when that comes through, this type of transmission comes through, people that are not currently having that experience, can poo-poo on it. Like, well, how I can't get to those places of feeling authentic and feeling the joy and the love, and until I have the resources of physical resources to allow me to do that. So there's a whole invitation in that to realize, okay, but what if I were to let go of those belief systems, right? What if I were just to try to participate, respond to the universe differently, even though the thinking mind feels comfortable in that, because that's what I sense has been my experience thus far. So it takes courage. And I think that's sort of the underlying foundational frequency of a lot of what we've been sharing and celebrating in this co-creational field today is courage, right? It does take courage. It takes courage to listen to the voice over, of starting your own publishing company. It takes courage to step in and share your story, with potentially thousands of or millions of people, and to really, open yourself to that place of vulnerability and so forth. And it takes courage to go against the main, to swim what feels like swimming against the stream at first, but then that presents itself as the illusion that it is also, once we find the courage and the trust to dive into new waters and, in different ways of participating. So I love this topic because it's something that I feel like we're all given the opportunity every single day to trust deeper, to go broader, to, to celebrate more, to, to let go more and more and more, because it's so woven within the fabric of the collective consciousness of humanity, seeing material wealth as source, right? As the end, as the goal, as the, as the homecoming, so to speak, when really, all the ancient masters and all the ascended masters and all the beings of light that have been and that are know that, the pot of gold is right here. It is within, right? And everything else will magnetize and cultivate as a result of remembering that and finding that again. So yeah,
Beautiful.
I feel like this is the next book for you.
I do want to write a book around abundance, so we'll see when that will come.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Excuse me.
I'd love if you could share with listeners some of the ways that people can connect with you, how, if they're looking to publish a book, if they're looking to, be a part of your coaching programs, where can people go to learn more?
Yeah, the best place to find me is Facebook or Instagram. So on Instagram, my handle is KAKIverse888. There's a method to my madness for that name, but I'll explain that if anyone wants to hear it. And if you find me on Facebook, Kaki Lee, there's a lot of Kaki Lees. So it's Kaki Lee 888, and then that's my personal profile, and you can find me there. Connect with me on Messenger. That's probably Messenger or Instagram Messenger. That's the best way. I'm not really good with emails, so don't email me. Otherwise, go to my website, www.kakilee.com.
Beautiful. And we'll be sure to put that in the email that has the link to the recording of our time today as well, in case anyone is like me and doesn't really have the gift of knowing how to spell things intuitively. Yeah.
Thank you.
We just love you and so grateful to have had this opportunity to share your light and your wisdom and your grace and inspiration with all whom have gathered here and all whom will gather to connect with this in the recorded form.
Yeah, so much gratitude and love for you, Kaki. You are incredible, such an inspiration, so genuine, and I'm so grateful that we had the opportunity to connect in this way today.
Yeah, and we would love to have you come back and further share all the different things that are in the form of, currently in way of creation.
I love you both so much. It's been so in my life. It just makes me really happy.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you everyone so much for joining us today and sharing your light. And we look forward to seeing you, I think,
in 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Okay.
The
Yeah.
28th.
28th. Yeah.
So much love, everyone.
Thank you. Blessings.
Thank you.
Bye.